Story 1. So, background. I live in a major city in my state. I went to my local big box grocery store. I am wearing a black sweatshirt and black sweatpants. The store uniform is a blue safety vest. I was out getting a large batch of food as my partner is immune compromised and I have mobility issues and hearing problems, so I try to stay home so as not to put him at risk. As I walked into the frozen food aisle, and this is where the story begins. Our cast: me, Karen, crotch goblin, store employee, store manager, and cop. I began looking for my partner's favorite brand of pizza. All of a sudden, I hear a child scream, and I feel a sharp tap on my shoulder. I stood up and turned around, and I saw a wild Karen, about 40 bob cut blonde hair, about 5'5", and a kid about 10. Me: "Can I help you, ma'am? I was always taught to help if I could." Karen: "Oh my God, I've been trying to get your attention for 5 minutes. Me: "I'm sorry, ma'am. I can't hear too well. What seems to be—" She cut me off. Karen: "I don't care. Where are the boys' clothes? My baby needs new clothes." I think over there? Points to the clothing part of the store. At this point, my panic disorder was in full swing. "Please stop yelling and go away." Karen: "How dare you? Our words shouldn't work here. You're scaring my baby. Get your manager, now." I was in full panic mode, saying, "I don't work here, you stupid witch. Get away from me." And I stormed off thinking it was over as the worker walked over. Boy, was I wrong. Employee: "Are you okay?" Me: "Yes, I'll finish up and leave. Sorry for the language and yelling." At this point, the employee walks away apologizing. So I go around to the electronics department to avoid the Karen and see one Nintendo Switch left. I quickly got a store employee and paid for it because my partner has always wanted one. I then walk back over to the frozen food section, and this is where the story resumes. That's when I hear it. Karen: "He's right here. He was rude and screamed in my baby's face. Fire him, now." Me: excuse me." Store manager: "Please calm down, sir. Are you almost done shopping?" I had everything I needed. "Yes, sir." Store manager: "Okay, go pay and then go to the customer service desk. We need to talk." Me: "Okay." As I turn back to my cart, I see the crotch goblin trying to pull the Nintendo Switch out of my cart. I immediately slapped his hand away. Me: "Hey, you can't do that. It's stealing. I've already paid for it." He screams. Insert Karen's scream. Me, thinking, "Oh no, what have I done?" Karen: "Give my baby the game now. You are too old for games." I was trying not to laugh. "Get lost, lady." Store manager: "Hey, don't talk to a lady like that." At this point, I walk away and pay for my groceries. I went to the customer service desk and waited. Karen storms over, tries to take the Switch. Karen: "This is mine." I quickly pushed her away. "Back off now." She then punches me. I snapped. I stood back up and punched her. I just wanted to run away. Karen: "Police, police, police, assault, assault, help." Me, thinking, "Oh great, I'm going to jail." I quickly called my partner to come get everything. The store manager tried to tackle me, and I threw him off and grabbed my cart and ran outside to my car, and frantically threw all of my items in my car and locked it. As I am finished putting everything away, a cop arrives. He ran up to me. "Cop, are you okay? You're bleeding out of your nose." I explained what happened, and he went to go watch the security videos. Karen comes running out towards me. Karen: "That him, officer, he assaulted me." Cop: "Ma'am, I've already seen the footage. Put your hands behind your back." "What? No, you can't arrest me. My husband's an officer," and begins to kick at the cop. He quickly throws her to the ground and drags her to his car. Then walks over to me. Cop: "Do you need an ambulance, sir?" Me: "No." At this point, the manager comes out, looks at me and says, "Don't ever come back here. You are blacklisted. Do you understand?" Whatever. Story 2. First, I will tell you about my crazy brother. Growing up, He was always the clown doing voices and antics to keep everyone laughing. He was shameless in getting a good laugh from everybody. On top of that, he was always a tough guy and a fighter, but he always stuck up for the underdog and was never a bully. He was also built 6'4" and 220 and had NFL tryouts as a tight end. Fast forward 40 years, decades of undercover drug work and then bounty hunting. Some of the worst cases in the country have taken their toll. He is the middle-aged, grizzled badass that has been beat down but not defeated. We were both at my mother's place, on the southeast coast, visiting, and had to go to the local Piggly Wiggly for supplies. While checking out at the register, a stereotypical native NJ Karen, 45, short, skinny, just ate a turd look on her face, big black hairdo and all, walks up to the bagging end of our line and shoves a $1.20 bill in the young checkout girl's face, demanding change. In a meek voice, the girl tells Karen that she cannot give her change. She will have to go to customer service. Karen reacts like all Karens, but since this was a native NJ Karen, she did it in an extra nasty manner. She started screaming at the poor girl about, "I need to get filtered water. You need to give me change now." The girl said again in an even quieter voice that she was not allowed to make change. After several rounds of this, the little girl was getting quieter and quieter. Karen finally screamed, "It's not my fault you are so fat and stupid you have to work here. Now give me change." The girl, with tears in her eyes, tried to respond again, but could not even make a sound. Just then, my 55-year-old 6'4" 240-pound brother takes a step towards NJ Karen and starts barking at her. This is not just a slight bark or even a normal loud bark. This is the loudest, deep-chested, most obnoxious bark any human being is capable of creating. Every time NJ Karen starts to open her mouth, he starts barking. NJ Karen does not give up easily, and it takes a good 3-4 rounds of barking to drive her off to the customer service desk. By this time, all the shoppers and the little checkout girl are laughing as hard as they can. Trust me, all Southerners dislike the native NJ Karens that have infiltrated their coastal community, much like the bad machine dirty Canadian geese. With NJ Karen gone, little checkout girl finishes checking us out as I pay. My brother hands her $20 and says that's for having to put up with all the rude customers. The little girl started crying as that was probably 4 hours of take-home pay for her at the time. You would think this was the end of the story, but my brother is crazier than that. As we are walking out with our groceries, we see the native NJ Karen at the service desk giving poor service guy hell, so my brother starts barking at her again. She turns to complain to service guy, and every time she opens her mouth, she gets barraged with barking. She finishes getting her change and beats it out of the store. As we exit, we see native NJ Karen pulling an empty water cooler jug out of the preferred native NJ Karen mode of transportation, a Cadillac Escalade, which she of course had left parked in the fire lane. She had needed the change to fill up her jug from the filtered water machine. She turns and sees my brother and is driven, in the way that all Karens are driven, to have the last word. She starts to scream at my brother and he starts to bark at her until she finally gives up, broken in glorious Karen defeat. We get to my car and my brother is in the most joyous mood I have seen him in years. He cannot control his hoarse laugh of sheer joy. I start to pull out and he says, "Drive by her car." I drive by and my brother puts his window down, sticks his entire upper body out the window, and starts barking at her all the way through the parking lot. As we pass, she runs out into the lot and takes a picture of my license plate with her cell phone. I wish I could have heard the response of the police when she asked them to go question me 3 states away about someone barking at her. Of course, she was a native NJ Karen and probably told the police that we tried to murder her. What she does not realize is Southern police hate native NJ Karens just as much as everyone else. Story 3. My wife recently started a job at the check-in desk at a downtown 5-star hotel. One of her shift supervisors is a relatively young Lebanese guy. Let's call him Douche. Douche is a typical Jersey Shore-looking wannabe. He's got greasy hair, immaculately groomed 3-day growth, and tan skin. The funny thing is he is also pudgy and overweight. so the whole look just comes across as sad. I've met him a few times, and he is smarmy, arrogant, and treats his staff badly. Anyway, from day one, he started hitting on my wife. He initially sent her a text, explaining that he took her number from the HR file as he was a dedicated leader and wanted to look after his team. He texted her pretty much before and after every shift, asking her to lunch beforehand or drinks afterwards in order to explain the system to her. These texts later devolved to telling her to sleep well and lots, so you can be fully refreshed at work, explaining that he wanted her looking angelic like you always do. Anyway, there is tons of this random nonsense, and he is always calling her pet names like babe, angel, or pretty. My wife tried to keep it professional in her replies, but it was quite clear this guy wasn't going to stop. She also always wears both her engagement ring and wedding band, so there is no excuse. To put this story into context, I am a current serving Army officer. As a platoon commander who has led soldiers in Afghanistan, I would say that I know a thing or two about leadership. So his claim that he was just being a dedicated leader just seemed pathetic. I wanted to straight out punch this dude in the face, schoolyard style, but my wife calmed me down as she didn't want to start trouble at her new job, and as a supervisor, douche could technically assign her the bad shifts. 2 weeks ago, my wife asked me to go pick her up from work. That way, she could introduce me to douche and the rest of the desk clerks as her husband. I went straight after work, so I was in full uniform and arrived about 10 minutes before her shift ended. I walked straight up to him and introduced myself. I towered a foot above him and gave him my hardest bone cruncher handshake. My voice was friendly, but my eyes were like a hawk. "Good day. My wife told me all about you. She is saying how you are a great leader and always looks after her team." He reddened, mumbled something about being busy, and walked away. I stared at him all the way as he exited the room. My wife and the rest of her team all burst out laughing. Pathetic. A few days after this incident, my wife gets an email from him with the upper management CC'd. Douche works with her every day, so the only reason why he would send her an email in lieu of just telling her would be because he wanted her to get into trouble from the bosses. The email explained that employees are forbidden from having personal visits during work hours, as it might reflect badly on the hotel. If she was to have someone pick her up, they should wait in the loading area at the back of the hotel. What the heck? I am super angry by now. Again, the wife calmed me down and told me to forget it. I love her, but she can be annoyingly professional sometimes. So I sat down and plotted revenge with 4 of my Army mates during our weekly outing session. We decided that the revenge should be subtle and not traceable to me. This rules out physically harming him. We then came up with a series of events that would screw with him for a period of 4 days. Mind you, I did this all while keeping my wife out of it. She would not approve. My mates and I went to an internet cafe and spent 3 hours signing up his work email address to all numbers of strange websites from all corners of the internet. 2, we surveilled him from when he left work and tailed him to his house. It wasn't hard as we had his shifts courtesy of my wife. After acquiring his address, we waited till dead in the middle of the night, sneaked into the yard, jacked his car up and placed all 4 tires up a tree he had in his front yard. Let him puzzle that one out. 3, finally, my friends and I called hotel management independently 6 times at varying intervals, pretended we were guests, and complained that we saw him behind the counter looking at inappropriate stuff on the internet. I feigned disinterest when my wife came home excitedly telling me that her leader was late for work as someone had removed his tires and that management had come to ask him a few questions but seized his computer instead when he wasn't there and were going through his emails. A few days later, he was being demoted and moved to a different location across town, 3-star motel owned by the same corporation that is in a very bad neighborhood. I've never told my wife about my involvement. Story 4. For context, this story takes place in a small rural town, and it happened yesterday. These are the ones involved. Me, an overprotective sister of 163 centimeters, important for later. Ben, twin brother of 200 centimeters, a friendly giant. Friend 1 and friend 2. Entitled Mom. Entitled kid. Police officer. It was a good day after a constant rainy week, so Ben and I decided to call both my friends to meet in the public park of our town to play Smash Bros. Ultimate the four together. And so it was. After midday we met, we paid for lunch between all of us, and we sat in the shade of a tree, took out our Switches, and began to play quietly. Enter the entitled kid. We were in the middle of a very intense fight, and this kid of no more than 7 years old arrived in front of us. The conversation was the following. Entitled kid, wow, are these Switches? Friend 1, that's right, you want to see us play? Entitled kid, no, I want to play. Friend 2, do you have a Switch? If you have it with Smash, we can. The kid interrupts. I do not have one, but I can use one of yours. Me, that isn't happening, kid. Friend 2, that's right, I'm sorry. Ben, it is very expensive to give like that. The kid leaves while pouting. After another 15 minutes of play, the entitled kid returned while we were finishing a team match and we were talking. Entitled kid, can you give me one to play now? Friend 2, kid, we told you no, go play elsewhere. And again, the kid left, and after another 10 minutes we finished playing, so we started packing our things. Ben and I kept our Switches and their protectors, and finally we said goodbye to our friends. Out of nowhere, I hear Ben yell, "Stop!" By the time I saw him again, Ben was holding the kid by his hair because the kid was trying to steal Ben's Switch. And obviously he started screaming like any 7-year-old that's being pulled from the hair would. Then from behind us some screams worthy of a banshee could be heard throughout the park. It was the entitled mother. The entitled mother was in her 30s, with a bit of overweight and Karen's typical hairstyle and 180 centimeters. Ben recovered her Switch and the entitled kid stayed on the floor, screaming as if he had broken an arm. Entitled mother, how dare you hit my angel? The mother raised his arm, ready to slap Ben. Remember that Ben is a friendly giant. He closed his eyes and raised one of his arms to protect himself from the blow. Do you also remember that I said that I'm overprotective? Immediately I got between Ben and the entitled mother, catching her arm and preventing her from slapping Ben. Me, your son was stealing Ben's Switch. I'll kindly ask you to. She interrupts me. Get lost, witch. Yes, she called me a witch, and then with her other hand she tried to grab my hair to get me out of the way. Little did she know that both Ben and I were practicing Taekwondo for 5 years. It was easy to dodge her grab. I bent down and Ben moved back. Then I pushed my shoulder to the entitled mother, hitting her belly not very hard, but enough to take her off me. Entitled mother, what's your problem? Me, you tried to hit my brother, your trash kid tried to steal my brother's console, and then you tried to hit me. Am I the one with the problem? Ben tells me to calm down. I was in full sister mode. The entitled kid was still on the floor screaming. And that's where a police officer came. Apparently someone called, "Police officer, stop you too. What's the problem?" Entitled kid, "Mommy, I want my Switch." Entitled mother, "These criminals stole my son's Nintendo and assaulted us." Me lies. That is Ben's Switch. Entitled mother, "Arrest them, officer." Police officer, "1 moment please." He approached us. "Can you prove that the console is yours?" At that moment, both Ben and I smiled mischievously. Me, Ben, take out the Switch. Ben, it's already out. Me, here, officer, I'll turn on the portable Wi-Fi on my phone. Oh, it connected without asking for a password. The online store of the console has a password. Obviously, as the console is not ours, they should know it. Ben gave his Switch to the officer, who, after understanding our plan, took the console to the entitled mother, who failed to put the password, and Ben made it at first try. Entitled kid, he hit me. Police officer, is that true? Ben, yes, but... Entitled mother, that's it. Arrest him for assault. Me, close your mouth and let him talk. She starts to yell again, but the police officer says, "Ma'am, please calm down. Young man, you can continue." Ben, as I said, I hit him. I had to grab him by the hair as he tried to steal my console. "Ma'am, I'll have to arrest you for theft and disturb the peace." Red of fury, the entitled mother launched herself at me to hit me, to which I simply took a small leap to the side and left my foot in her path. The entitled mother ended up falling to the ground face first, and the officer immobilized her on the ground. "Me, threaten me or my brother again, and the next one will be worse for you," I said in a cold tone while the officer was taking her to the police car. The officer told us that another unit would come to take us home, and that was the story of how we went out with friends, played Smash, and went home in a police car. The entitled mother was arrested, and after that, no more was heard about her. Story 5. 3 years ago, I was at the local grocery store with my college friends. A little side note, I am autistic, and it is very uncomfortable to me when others touch me or speak to me aggressively. My friends went to the chip aisle to search for a particular brand of chips they liked while I went to gather ingredients for queso. It's important to note that I was wearing a green shirt in the same shade employees wore, but I was also wearing ratty jeans and sneakers. The scene is set. The single 19-year-old gangly female reaching for some microwavable cheese blocks. Suddenly, I am whirled around by what I can only describe as a Karen harpy from hell. Poorly dyed black hair, spray on tan, the works. "You, where are the gardening supplies? I've been looking everywhere for an employee, and here you are, probably not on break." "Oh, this is a grocery store, ma'am. They most likely don't stock supplies for gardening. Also, I don't work here." Employees wear green shirts with black vests and name tags. She scoffs. "Nonsense. You're new, aren't you? Didn't listen during training? Well, I'm going to find your manager, and you, little missy, are coming with me." At this point, Karen grabs my upper arm, hard, and practically drags me from my intended purchase. I'm shocked, scared, and eventually, my brain realizes this is a danger zone situation, and I start struggling and telling her to let me go calmly but firmly. "Ma'am, please, I don't work here. Even if I did, this is a store name. They don't stock gardening tools." I am cut off by her sharply striking my face. She peers at me as if I'm some troublemaking, lazy teen that has gone unnoticed in the workplace. "Listen, young lady. Where I come from, we had to work hard to get where we are. You parading around acting like you're on break is going to come to an end with me. Understand? Now be a good girl for once and let me talk to your boss." I wait, tearing up quietly, on a bench while my friends run up to me. They comfort me, with one of them saying that I should press charges for assault. "Hell yes, I'm charging this weirdo." The manager walks over, assessing my appearance, and tells Karen who hit me that no, I do not work here. Before Karen can retort, I speak up. "Sir, this woman has hit me and made threats against me. Can you call the police and have them see the security footage?" The manager looks shocked. "Ma'am, is this true?" "Certainly not. This little girl told me to get lost when I was asking for assistance." I couldn't believe the audacity of this lady. "Well, this is a serious accusation, so I'm calling the cops anyway." Karen turns tail and bolts. My friends manage to coerce me into leaving the store, and we go back to my apartment to eat and watch TV. Later, I got a house call from the cops with Karen in handcuffs. Turns out she had been shoplifting in that store for a little under a month by coercing younger college-age employees to check her out and forget to ring up things like expensive cuts of meat, bottles of drinks, etc. The employees were all too scared to do anything because she had a photo ID of the regional manager, who was her brother, and she claimed he would fire them if anything was reported. I told the cops my statement, and they took it straight to her brother, who, despite being close to her, pressed charges for theft, assault, and other grievances. From what I can tell, Karen goes in and out of jail these days for minor crimes. Story 6. As the title suggests, this story is about a person with diplomatic immunity. Before I dive into the story, first a little something to note about these diplomats. Yes, they do have immunity, but to an extent, they can't be prosecuted in the hosting country, unless their home country waives the immunity. For example, they can drive over the speed limit, and when they get a ticket, nothing happens. However, they need to respect the host country's laws and regulations. They are not exempted from any security check. When they want to enter a building where a security check is mandatory before entering, they have to undergo that check or they're refused access. This is important for the story. Only their diplomatic luggage are exempted from any security check. These luggages are sealed with an official stamp, and the diplomat needs to have the correct documents with them signed and stamped by their embassy. Also, for the sake of the story to make sense, some of these diplomats are in the possession of an airport badge. In order for them to have access at some parts of the airport, to collect someone from the gate or guide someone to their gate, without having to buy a ticket to gain access, they have a different color, green-bluish in my airport, than the regular airport badges, white. Long intro, I know, but here we go. This happened in January 2020. I was already working as a supervisor. I sat behind my desk doing my admin work when my fellow supervisor said there was a long queue at our staff lane. We were very busy at that moment, and I didn't have anyone available to help out, so I went out there and supported my colleagues at the staff lane. I positioned myself as a 3D person at our WTMD, walk-through metal detector. Every staff member needs to show me their airport badge when they pass the WTMD. I just check the details there, and then they can continue their way. Things went smoothly, and we were almost through most of the queue after about 10 minutes. Q, our above-mentioned diplomat. It's only fitting to call her Karen. I spotted her skipping the queue and walking straight towards us, her green-bluish badge at the ready. I stood in front of her and said, "Good afternoon, madam. How may I help you today?" Without looking at me, she just waved her badge in my face and tried to continue her way. My colleague blocked the entrance of the WTMD and asked the same thing. Karen then said, still waving her badge, "Move out of my way, you idiot. I'm a diplomat." My colleague then tells her, "Can't do, madam. You need to put all your belongings in a tray first and have them go through the scanner. Then you need to walk through this gate asterisk pointing at the WTMD asterisk so you can continue your way." Are you deaf? I am a diplomat. Get me your supervisor now. My colleague pointed at me, and all I did was smile and wave. Tell this idiot he needs to let me through now. I'm a diplomat. I am exempt from any security check. I tell her, first of all, you are not exempted in any way, shape, or form. You're supposed to know this. Secondly, you are also not exempted from following the queue. And lastly, my colleague is not an idiot. If this is the way you're going to treat me or any of my colleagues, you will be refused access. I then point my hand towards the back of the queue. Keep that in mind. Karen starts screaming, "So you're an idiot as well? I'm a diplomat." She then took a deep breath and looked up to the ceiling and back at me with a smirk and says, "I'll get you." And that guy asterisk nods her head to my colleague asterisk, "Just you wait. You haven't seen the last of me." She then screamed, "How dare you treat me this way?" She didn't scream it in an angry manner, but more in an emotional way, also important later. I thought maybe she had a bad day and didn't say anything from that point forward as she walked away crying. Later that day, my operational manager called me in his office. He told me there was a complaint against me. Wonder who it's from. He said that Karen told the airport I treated her poorly and threatened to physically remove her from the airport if she didn't get out of my sight. Now I know why she started crying. My operational manager then showed me the CCTV footage, which kind of confirmed her story in a way. When the footage showed me pointing my hand to the queue, my operational manager said, "This is where she said you threatened to assault her." I laughed and shook my head. I told my side of the story, even commentating live while we rewatched the CCTV. My operational manager said he believes me, but that the airport never received my side of the story as I didn't write a report. I also didn't notify my security inspector of the incident, which made me look suspicious to the airport. The airport wanted my operational manager to sanction me in a way he seemed fit. They wanted to take away my airport badge at first because the complaint came from the embassy itself. She probably left out the fact she tried to bypass security. But my operational manager said that I probably didn't have the time to write a report yet, which was true of course, and that he would deal with me. He told me he would keep a close eye on me, and I should report everything from here on out. So yeah, I almost lost my job because of this Karen. Great. Now the revenge. When I was passing through staff lane not long after that, I saw her again. She was on her way to the staff entrance again. I avoided eye contact and I walked through the WTMD and then thought, screw it. I wasn't in the wrong here. So I described her to my colleague, Ben, as he was verifying my badge, and said that she's a troublemaker, so to just let her come through the WTMD, greet her, ask her badge, and tap me on the shoulder. He said, "Sure thing, Chief." She walks toward the WTMD bag and passes through. Meanwhile, I was standing over my tray getting my wallet and keys, etc., not once looking at my surroundings. Ben then tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Can you look at this?" I took the badge and turned around facing my colleague. "Is she standing to the side?" When Ben turned around to verify, I quickly rip of the hologram sticker. "Without this, the badge is invalid." I looked at Karen. I put my hand on Ben's shoulder and thanked him. I greet her. "Hello again, madam. Welcome. I just need to verify your badge, if you don't mind, so you can be on your way in just a second." Karen tasted victory. "Finally, you've learned some manners." Oh dear, I'm sorry, but your badge is invalid." "Excuse me." "Yes, look, your hologram is completely gone." I then looked up to her and then quickly turned my head back and forth between her and the WTMD several times. I then turned my head around to look at the back of our checkpoint and then back at her. "What are you doing?" I pointed behind my back to the end of the checkpoint saying, "Did you just come from over there?" Karen shouts, "No, jerk. I came from over there **. She points at the entrance **. "Can you please calm down, madam?" I lifted my hands and took a step back. "I can sort this out for you. Do you mind standing to the side there?" She complied, and I asked for her diplomatic passport. I said I needed it to go run it through my system to validate. She handed it over and told me to hurry up. Ben watched her as I went to my desk. According to our SOP, standard operating procedures, the only options I had was either A. Refuse the access myself, like I did before. B. To go to my inspector, explain the situation, and be done with it. He would send Karen back for a new badge, and probably would have forced her to go through security or escort her out. Problem solved. However, I already had a plan, and it was already set in motion. I first called the airport police department and said that I have a female here who's refusing to be checked, claiming to be a diplomat. They asked if the inspector was around, and I said I haven't seen him. They would send out a patrol immediately. Great. Another colleague, who returned from her break, was waiting to be put to work, so I ordered her to replace Ben and send him to my desk. A minute or so later, Ben came to me, saying that Karen was getting frustrated, and he asked me what was going on. I briefly told him what happened before, and I informed him of my plan. Now Ben was a new guy who just started, but he was a cool guy. He was a bouncer before he came to the airport, so he knows how these Karens can be. He liked the plan and said, "You know what, Chief? I wasn't sure if a diplomat was exempted from a security check or not. Honest mistake. Sorry." He winked and smirked at me. I told him to start typing up his incident report as I headed back to Karen. Meanwhile, the police arrived and I handed over the passport and badge. "This lady refuses to go through security. She threatened me for the second time today, saying I would lose my job. She also gave a false statement to the airport about me, risking me to lose my job." I was speaking in my language, so Karen didn't understand a word. If you rewatch the CCTV footage from this hour, you'll see that she aggressively came at me after pointing out her badge was invalid. I also didn't see where she came from, and when I asked if she passed security, she started freaking out. One of the officers said, "Okay, we'll take her with us and explain what's going on." Another officer informs Karen that she needs to come with them, and she just gasped at the officer and looked at me in disbelief. I then told the police officers, "Great, Thank you. Oh, by the way, I want to press charges against her for slandering me. Sure, just follow us. Karen started to get frustrated, but had no option than to follow us, as we had all her documents. I radioed my fellow SPV saying I'm going with the police, and it would take a while. When I returned a few moments later, Ben showed me his report. It was perfect. I typed up mine and sent both reports to my operational manager. I informed him that I did file a complaint against her with the police. I returned home smiling. My operational manager's response the next day was that he heard of the incident, and he notified the corporation, who in turn filed a complaint through their legal team against Karen. Result: I never saw Karen again at the airport. A few months ago, May, my operational manager informed me that our complaints were noted by the court and had been sent to Karen's home country. Charges were slander and attempting to enter a security-restricted area and bypassing the security. Turns out Karen was just an assistant, specifically a driver for some higher-ranked diplomats, basically meaning that she didn't even have the same privileges or immunities as a real diplomat has. She lost her diplomatic passport, persona non grata, and has been sent back to her country. The airport also apologized to me, not personal. My operational manager only said that I had to follow the SOP and go to the inspector first. To which I just replied, "Hey asterisk, I hold up hands asterisk, you just said I needed to report everything, and I did." The inspector was on the phone at that moment, and it looked important, lie. My operational manager just shook his head, and we still laugh about it till this day.